The locals in the village of Harrowmere had a way of speaking about certain things without ever naming them. The moors were one. The churchyard after dusk was another. And then there was the house at the edge of Blackthorn Lane. It had no official name, though older residents sometimes called it the Blackthorn House, after the twisted hedges that had grown wild around it. No one lived there. No one had for decades. But lights were sometimes seen in the upper windows, and on certain nights, when the fog rolled low across the fields, people claimed they heard voices drifting from its grounds. Voices that sounded almost familiar. Daniel Carter had never believed a word of it. He was a journalist from London, sent north to write a feature on vanishing villages and rural myths. Harrowmere was just another assignment, another quiet place with exaggerated stories to fill empty space. At least, that's what he thought. He arrived just before evening. The village was smaller than expected. Stone cottages, narrow lanes, and a silence that felt deliberate. When he mentioned the house to the innkeeper, the man's expression tightened. "Best leave that one be," he muttered, polishing a glass that didn't need polishing. "Nothing for you there." Daniel smiled politely. That's exactly what makes it worth writing about. The innkeeper didn't smile back. The path to Blackthorn House cut through a stretch of moorland where the wind never seemed to settle. By the time Daniel reached the gate, the sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the world in that grey, uncertain half-light. The house loomed ahead, tall, narrow, its brickwork darkened with age and damp. Several windows were broken. Others reflected nothing at all, not even the fading sky. The gate creaked as he pushed it open. The sound carried too far, as if something inside had been listening for it.
The front door was unlocked. Of course it was. Daniel stepped inside, switching on his torch. The beam cut through thick dust and revealed a narrow hallway lined with peeling wallpaper. The air was stale, tinged with something metallic. "Hello?" he called. The words seemed to settle into the walls rather than echo back. He moved deeper into the house. Each room told the same story, abandoned in haste. A teacup still sat on a small table, its contents long evaporated but leaving a faint stain. A coat hung by the door, as though its owner had only just stepped out. It felt staged. Too perfect. Too preserved. The first voice came as he reached the staircase. "Daniel." He froze. It had been soft, barely audible, but unmistakable. He turned slowly. "Hello?" Silence. Then again, closer this time. "Daniel, why are you here?" The voice was familiar, painfully so. His chest tightened. "Mom?" The word escaped before he could stop it. Impossible. She had been dead for 3 years. Yet the voice, there was no mistaking it. It came from upstairs. The staircase groaned under his weight as he climbed. The air grew colder with each step, his breath faintly visible in the beam of his torch. At the top of the stairs, the corridor stretched into darkness, and at the far end, a figure stood, back turned, still. "Mom?" Daniel whispered. The figure tilted its head slightly as though listening. Then it began to walk, not away, but sideways, into the wall, and through it. Daniel's stomach lurched. He should have left. Every instinct told him to turn back, to run, to put as much distance between himself and that place as possible. Instead, he followed. The wall it had passed through wasn't solid, not anymore. The wallpaper sagged inward, pulsing faintly, as if something behind it were breathing. Daniel reached out. His fingers sank into it. Warm. Wet. He recoiled, but too late. The surface rippled outward, and the wall split open with a soft, tearing sound. Behind it was not another room, but something else entirely. The space beyond seemed too large to fit within the house. Dark, but not empty. Shapes moved within it, slow, shifting forms that pressed against one another like bodies in a crowd. A smell hit him then. Rot. And blood. Old and fresh, mingling into something nauseatingly sweet. "Daniel." The voice came again, right beside him. He turned. His mother stood there, or something wearing her shape. Her face was almost right, but the skin hung too loosely, and her smile stretched far wider than it should. "You came back to me," she said. This isn't real." "It is," she said gently. "It remembers you." "Who does?" She raised a trembling hand and touched the wall. It shuddered. The shapes inside pressed closer. "It does." The floor shifted beneath him. Not violently, subtly. like something turning in its sleep. Daniel staggered, grabbing onto the wall for support. It pulsed under his hand. A heartbeat. Slow. Heavy. Wrong. "You shouldn't have come," his mother said softly, though her voice now carried a second tone beneath it. Lower. Rasping. Hungry. "I need to leave," Daniel said, backing away. The corridor behind him had changed. The staircase was gone. In its place was more wall. More breathing, living wall. "No one leaves," she said. The first hand emerged from the surface beside him. It pushed through slowly, as though the wall were liquid. Then another. And another. They were pale, stretched, fingers too long, nails cracked and dark with something that wasn't quite dry. They reached for him. Daniel tried to run, but the floor clung to his shoes, softening, gripping. "Stop! Stop!" The hands seized him. Cold. Unyielding. They pulled at his coat, his arms, his face. Skin tore under their grip. Blood welled instantly. He screamed. The sound didn't escape. It sank into the walls and came back louder, multiplied.
His mother stepped closer. Up close, he could see movement beneath her skin, shapes writhing, pressing outward, as though she were barely containing them. "You'll stay with us," she said. "I don't want to." "You already are." The wall behind him opened, not cracked, opened, like a mouth. Inside was a mass of bodies, faces half-formed, limbs tangled together, all shifting in slow, endless motion. Some of them turned toward him, their mouths opened, and they spoke, in unison. "Stay." The hands pulled harder. Daniel felt something inside him give, not break, but separate. His vision warped. His arms no longer felt like his own. His skin stretched, thinning as something beneath pressed outward. He tried to scream again, but his voice had changed, layered, blended with others. The last thing he saw was his mother's face splitting open, not in pain, but in welcome. And behind it, more faces, waiting. The next morning, the innkeeper stood at the edge of Blackthorn Lane. He had seen Daniel leave the night before. He had not seen him return. For a long moment, he stared at the house. Then he turned away, because from one of the upper windows, faint but unmistakable, a voice was calling, and it sounded new.